I wanted to talk about pseudonyms or pen names because it's something I struggle with and something I'm trying to decide what to do. And I have a list of reasons, but we can go on what is your thinking of why somebody might want to use a pseudonym. And then I got a list of other reasons if you don't hit one of them.
I'll use a pen name, obviously. You know my real name. I think, so many authors do it. So I guess the question is why.
Right.
I think that there's a certain freedom in concealing your identity behind a pen name, just as part of the creative act. I found that to be the case. But I also think that authors write under different pen names. I don't know how many Dean Koontz had, but
a lot. I was looking that up. At least 10.
At least 10. And when he did the Gothic romance books, which are very expensive, they're big collector's items. I looked on eBay and they're like, $300 for one of his Deanna Dwyer, I think it was, Gothic romances. And, it makes sense that he would write books, especially during that time, books aimed at mostly female readers with a female pen name that sounds like the genre.
That is one of the big reasons that established writers may choose a pseudonym pen name is because they want to try something new. So you have Dean Koontz, who clearly has a specific genre everybody who knows him goes for. But then, like you said, he wants to write something outside of that genre. They want to tackle a different genre. They may choose to adopt that name.
Yeah, I read a book by, it's actually an excellent book by Dean Koontz that came out in the 70s, and it's called Writing or How to Write Commercial Fiction or Genre Fiction, I think it is. And this is when he was writing under a lot of different pen names, including the Gothic romance, and he breaks it down like Westerns, like different genre. And it was obvious that he did this to make money. Like this was his job. He's like, yeah, I can whip up a Gothic romance in a week, slap my pen name on it, send it off, and now I've made, how much money it was at the time. So for him, it was definitely a practical decision, and maybe some other reasons too. But I think that that's also part of it. It's a way to make money.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's your job.
No, gosh, no, not at all.
You can do it. Agatha Christie had the false name Mary Westmacott because she wanted to. Her. She made Agatha Christie we know was always mysteries, right? But she wanted to get
her real name.
No, Agatha that's the name Christie? She made up to write romance novels.
Oh, okay.
So that is one. Now let's go. What do you think? Another reason someone may use a fake name?
Well, there's Stephen King's pen name, Richard Bachman.
That's correct. Yeah.
Bachman. And I'm not sure if
I know what I heard. Let me see what you heard. Do you know why?
I think it was because he became such a popular author that he was testing the waters with this other pen name to see if he could get published.
That's not what I heard. No, because he was already published, I think.
No, but published as Richard Bachman.
Oh, yeah, no, but what I heard was, and that could be true, with Stephen King, there's a lot of stories out there. The story I heard was that, and we know this now, that he wanted to write so much, but the publishers were like, you can't write this many books.
Oh, I've heard that too.
Stephen King, you'll burn yourself out. Like no one's going to want to buy 4 Stephen King books a year, So he would write Richard Bachman books to continue writing and publish.
Now, are Richard Bachman books? I have a couple. I don't know if maybe I have read. Then he re-released some with his Stephen King name, I think. But are they different from Stephen King? Are they more extreme horror?
Give me a second here. I want to grab my Bachman books. Hold on. All right. So it's in really bad condition. It's a paperback called The Bachman Books.
Okay.
They're very similar. Like if you So let's see. The long walk is only death can keep you from the finish line in the ultimate competition of the all too near future. And I think that might be, and then The Running Man. The Running Man.
Oh, right. Yep.
That's a movie with Schwarzenegger. Great movie. Mm-hmm. So there are 4 books here. Rage, The Long Walk, Road Work, and The Running Man. And I think they're very much Stephen King. Rage, you cannot get. So unless you buy...
If you see it, get it.
Yeah, the reason why is it's a school shooting.
Oh, that's right. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Wait, was Thinner one of his Bachman books?
Yeah, I think Thinner was also a Bachman book.
I read that one.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. Even the movie was okay. Mm-hmm. But Rage, he decided not to have that out there anymore. So, like, if you see it, you can pick it up. But I will say, reading it, it's not good. It's not a very good book.
Okay. But it is a collector's item.
It's very, very early, his writing. Yeah, I guess it's a collector's item.
You were talking about why authors might choose a pen
so
name.
that's I have some other ones, but keep going.
I was thinking of to hide the fact that they're a female.
Yes.
Especially back in the day, like George Eliot comes to mind. And there have been other writers where traditionally I'm talking in the 1800s and earlier, where it would seem unseemly for a woman to write maybe a particular type of novel. And I still think, you have J.K. Rowling. She may have done that. My pen name, R. St. Clair, you can't really tell. I guess you can tell that, I'm a female writer, but, it doesn't give it away right away.
Oh, what, the R. St. Clair?
The R.
Yeah, who knows? That
Richard.
Could be Richard St. Clair. That's right. But J.K. Rowling, I think, yes, that was the same idea of R. St. Clair. It was like, you don't know if it's John Rowling. However, she did use a pseudonym to publish crime fiction, like more adult type stuff, under the name Robert Galbraith.
Galbraith, yes, yes. I've only read the first Harry Potter book, so I'm not really knowledgeable about her work, but I think she's a good writer. Well, there's also Anne Rice.
Yes.
Wrote she wrote her erotica under, I think I brought this up, A.N. Roquelaure, which means Anne with a cloak.
Ooh.
In French, the Roquelaure's cloak, I guess. So I thought that was interesting. Did you ever read any of her?
No. Like
the Taking of Beauty?
Yeah, no.
No? You don't know what you're missing.
I've heard about it and I've been very interested, but I just didn't.
I also think that writing under a pen name can be, for an author, can be extremely freeing. For example, I have a couple titles out there. I won't tell you what the pen name is, where I tried writing in a different style, writing more like a traditional romance almost as an experiment under a pen name. They didn't do, I have 2 books out. They didn't do very well, but they're still on Amazon, but I won't tell you what they are because it's kind of embarrassing. But I did that because I wanted to try to write under a different genre.
Yeah.
Mostly to see if they would be popular and make money, but they really didn't. They kind of failed. So maybe my heart wasn't in it.
Yeah, that's like the genre hopping is a great reason why you may do that, because R. St. Clair is a horror writer, and that doesn't mean you cannot write science fiction, doesn't mean you cannot write romance. But once you become a brand, unless you are Stephen King, and even he would probably have a hard time saying, "Oh, I'm doing a romance."
Right, because I've written some fantasy. It's not published. It's on Wattpad because it's more of I don't know, what would you call it? Experimenting with the genre.
Yeah.
So, which is what I like to do sometimes. And fantasy, and that's under my pen name, but fantasy and horror, it's pretty much overlapped and science fiction as well. Those 3 are often grouped together.
Yeah, when you're in the bookstore, you'll find them all together.
Yeah, even though kind of drives me crazy when they are grouped together in a bookstore. Toni Morrison apparently is the pen name, which I didn't know. I have not read many of her books, but I should. It's like on the list of those things that I should be reading, but then I can't help reading my sleazy horror books.
Let's talk about some famous ones since you just brought that up. Do you know that Lewis Carroll is not his real name?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's Charles Ludwig Dodgson.
Oh, you know what? I did know that.
He's an English writer. Now, he was, like, we talked about Alice in Wonderland, and he's a mathematician. And so Lewis Carroll, he had a weird way of coming up with it. I think he took his name, turned it into Latin, and then flipped it and came up with Lewis Carroll when he translated it back.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, we have George Orwell. Did you know that was a pen name?
No.
His name is...
I knew that Mark Twain was a pen name.
We're getting there.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Right. Eric Arthur Blair is George Orwell's name. Now, this is really fascinating. We're talking about reasons you may want to use a pen name. His reason was that his first book was down and out in Paris and London, and he did not want to embarrass his family as it was a memoir that reflects on his time living in poverty.
Okay.
So that's one reason, is family. You may have a reason you don't want the people in your life to know you're writing about them.
Especially if you're writing about what horrible people they
were. Or just personal things, you want to separate that.
Personal things.
Isaac Asimov had a pen name, Paul French. Now, he's famous for sci-fi. I mean, he's the god of robot fiction, But he wanted to publish a series of juvenile science fiction books, so that's why he chose that name, Paul French.
Well, that makes sense, like we were talking about when you want to change genres.
Yep.
And you also want to hide your identity a bit. Like I have thought about, as just an exploration, challenging myself to write a very extreme horror novel. To see if I, just as a challenge. I don't read extreme horror, but I just thought maybe I would just to play and come up with some kind of pen name for if I do that for that.
Now, do you think if you did that, would you choose a male name or a female name?
I would definitely choose a male name.
Yeah.
And I think also writing with the male voice, I believe that in Jung's theory about the anima and the animus, like within us, we can tap into these different voices. And I mean, literary voice. Writing from a male point of view, I think could be freeing in a way. And then also writing a romance, perhaps from a lot of romances will like switch the lover's point of view. That's just like a popular technique I see a lot. So one chapter's his perspective, one chapter's her perspective. It's a fun thing to do as an author. It can be very creative.
It's interesting you brought that up about writing from a male point of view, because I remember interviewing Andy Weir. He wrote The Martian, and he also has a new book that came out maybe a year ago. That's when I interviewed him, was Project Hail Mary. His second book was called Artemis, and I really enjoyed that book, but his main character was female. And he said that he did get some criticism from people who thought that they didn't enjoy his female point of view. So I think that might be something you may run into if you're writing under your name and you're a male and you're writing a female character, or vice versa. Although I don't think females would get as much grief. And I think that's today's culture, is like...
Yeah, like Andrew Lyle, who wrote the foreword for Carney, my new book, mentioned, he did a really great video about Carney, but he mentioned that my protagonist, in his words, is a bit of a scumbag. And I agree. He's not a nice guy. He's misogynistic. That's the character I created. And Andrew was saying how, even though he's kind of a jerk, you root for him. And that can be a little morally confusing. But he said that he didn't know if he could get away with writing that character as much as I can. Maybe I won't get away with writing that character, but you know what I mean? Like, but I can kind of,
but that's a good point.
I can kind of, I don't know. I can kind of I can kind of get away with it because I'm female. And if I were a male and writing this obnoxious character, would I get some flack for it?
Yeah, you might get flack because people would say, are you promoting this type of behavior as a man? Right?
Right.
Either way,
but I do think that is always a risk for any writer, and to worry about, especially if you're writing horror or something edgy, like, oh, people are going to think this is what I think, but that's just fear, and you should try to move past that as much as you can.
Yeah, I agree. You could try a pseudonym if you're worried, like you said, about writing something extreme and maybe you want to just see how it goes.
If I were writing extreme horror, which I never have, but I think I do have at least a couple short stories like that in, and some of my short stories are actually pretty extreme, but I might flirt with a male pen name just to really give me like that dose of testosterone to get me through it, to power through my sick fantasy.
You brought up Mark Twain. His real name is Samuel Clemens, and he had other pen names, but apparently Mark Twain was the one that stuck around. There's a very normal reason you may choose a pen name, and that's because it's already established as a name, like James Patterson. Apparently there's a lot of James Pattersons in the world.
Oh.
And if your name's James Patterson, you probably don't want to write under that name. I don't even know if you could.
I think you can.
It'd be a bad choice, I think.
But maybe people are searching for James Patterson and then your book comes up and they buy your book by mistake.
Yeah. But I wonder if there is something like, if my name was really Stephen King, he's got to have it trademarked to a place where it's like, that's
a good question. I don't know.
I don't know either. But I wouldn't take the chance. Like it'd be a cheesy like way of thinking I'm going to trick people into buying my books. But the minute they realize that, they'll be pissed. You know, I was just thinking about something when it comes to why you might want to change the name or use a pseudonym. Let's say she released something and it was a failure, like big time bomb that everybody was talking about it. You might not want to try publishing again under that name.
Right.
The reason why I brought up this is because for myself, I've tried to find the perfect name throughout my history of just being online and everything like that. And currently I use James Ippoliti, but here's the problem when I'm thinking, let's say somebody says, oh, we're going to publish your thing. I don't know if my last name, and I don't know if other people have this problem, is my last name too complicated? Most people can't pronounce it.
I always have to look on how to spell it, to be honest.
Right. Spelling it is a problem as well. And that always bothered me to the point where it's like, I guess give me an author that has a complicated last name and not somebody from the 1400s, you know, like King. So here's another one. Joe Hill is Stephen King's son. Now he did Joe Hill to get published and not have this nepotism, right? And
even though we all know he's Stephen King's son,
but when he was submitting, they might not have known that. And his middle name is Hillstrom or something like that. And he just shortened it to Joe Hill. And then I remember him saying later he wished he kept the whole name for his last name. But
I don't know. I think Joe Hill's a good.
I do too. And why? Because it's so simple.
It's simple. It's easy to remember.
It fits great on a book.
You know how to spell it.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying about James Ippoliti. So earlier, I used to go by James DeFeo.
I think you were James DeFeo when I first met you.
No.
And then I called you R. James.
R. James, I think, is the first thing you called me. Yeah, I confused a lot of people. But James DeFeo I used for music. I like that name.
But that's one of your family names.
Right. It's my grandmother's name. It also has that Amityville connection if I want it to be horror. You know, I'm probably related to the DeFeos in Amityville.
Well, you know, like Claire is one of my family names. I just spelled it differently.
Right.
And added the Saint.
But I think R. St. Clair flows really nice.
Oh, well, thanks. I didn't mean to bring it back to me. I just thought about like choosing names that
well, that's what I'm saying. When we're choosing a name,
connected.
The other one is I can go with Dr. J, like Dr. Seuss. Mm-hmm. But my problem with that is I don't want to be Dr. J, like the Philadelphia 76ers with just J period. And then if it's Dr. J, it doesn't look visually nice to me. I don't know why. Yeah.
Maybe you should ask your readers or people your followers to choose a name for you.
I'm going to do a poll. Yeah.
Like a contest. They did that with Joan Crawford. That's how she ended up with Joan Crawford.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What was her real name? Do you remember?
Lucille Lesieux.
Oh, yeah. That's not easy.
No.
So that's what I want to, if you're somebody in my situation where you have a name that might be either too long or maybe you don't even like it. That's another thing. You might not like the name, or it might be hard to pronounce and or spell.
Like my real name, my real last name has a lot of syllables.
And vowels.
Well, I think the pen name, one of the best reasons to have a pen name, if you do something really stupid, then you won't, your grandmother won't read about it in the paper and know that it was you.
Pen names. Next week, we'll do a new episode. Do you have any things you're thinking about you want to do for next week? I have a couple ideas.
We talked about how to relate to about author reviews.
Okay, you want to do that next week?
Yeah, let's do that next week.
All right, so next week we'll talk about reviews, how to
get reviews. Now I'm going to stop talking and let you go.
That's all right. But how to get reviews. You can talk, Regina, about how you've went about this, and also how to respond to or not respond to negativity online. Mm-hmm. All right. We'll be back next week.
All right. Sounds good. See ya.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Bookworms Horror Podcast. All our links are in the show notes. We'll be back next week with a new episode.